You cut me loose and set me free. You make me win in every way. You showed me how to spread my wings. Yes, I'm the winner of the day. You cut me loose and set me free. You make me win in every way.
Hey, everybody.
So good to see you back here. Hi, my love. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Thank you, my love. Had a good weekend. Yeah.
Good. So did I. It was productive.
Wow. I'm going to be hearing about that soon, I'm sure.
Amen.
So if you watched on Friday, you would have seen that we were pondering the positivity conundrum, and certainly the myths surrounding that.
Productivity conundrum.
What did I say?
Positivity conundrum.
Oh my God, you see, I was already going to the next thing. Yes, the productivity conundrum. And then we also touched on sort of very physical applications and a mindfulness technique that you could take with you forward. And we certainly did that as well. And this is where we urge you to please join us on the journey as we go forward with these kinds of exercises, just because it helps us. We learn from you, and it's so good to get all these different viewpoints and aspects of what you think about the topic.
Yes, please. We really need it. We need as much weigh in as possible. It's a conversation, not a monologue, not a dialogue between two people. Happy Mother's Day for yesterday, everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, we hope it was a good weekend, and we're excited to see how did the reflections go? I suppose we left it off with doing some managing of expectations and productivity stuff. Basically, for me, I just made lists of what I needed to do, and then actually just wrote down what expectations I expected from myself and managed that. And then I kind of felt a lot more calm, and I could go through my day having had like a list of tasks to do and not kind of feeling like every moment I should be doing everything at the same time.
Exactly. Like, I know you and I both are very huge list makers,
Yes.
and then it helps you when you tick them off. So I get that 100%. I really do. So my reflections were a little bit different and a little bit more difficult, simply because what I didn't share before we went on Friday was that on Wednesday, so prior to our Friday episode, I got a message from someone that I consider to be really, really close. And the message kind of threw me for a loop, because it was this person kind of who I really care for and I really take a lot of advice from, left a message that made me question sort of my motivation and our motivation behind doing the show. And then came to some sort of conclusion about it. And it completely threw me. And I thought, wow, I feel a complete sense of inertia. And the fact that we had a show to actually do on Friday was great, because the show must go on. So we did it anyway. I blocked out that voice, although it was running in the back of my head. So it was feeling a little bit shitty as we were doing the show. And then the next day, when I was actually reflecting on it and writing in the journal about this productivity conundrum, the feeling of that text kept coming up, and it just wouldn't go away. So I really explored it from the beginning to the end.
Right.
And at the end of it, it kind of like, woo, it was a light bulb moment. And this automatically led into you and I having the conversation about what our next topic would be. So here it is. Yeah, so basically just to touch back on why I think journaling is important and why we've introduced it into this platform. I think you and I both are aware of Julia Cameron's work, right, Carmen?
I love her work so much.
So The Artist's Way. And as part of that teaching device, she gets you to write morning pages every morning. So on Awakening, all you do is reach for your journal and you just write like a free flow of consciousness. You don't even edit yourself. You just write 3 pages. And the concept behind that is that it takes literally like a page and a half before you actually start getting to the nitty gritty of stuff. Like the first page and a half is literally like stuff that you just need to get off your chest or off your head and onto the page. So what I need to do today, I'm worried about this. I better make sure I return that email. I need to go shopping. I need to, it's almost like a pantry list of stuff that you need to do, that you need to tick off. And then finally you start to find, and magic just starts to happen. It just starts to flow. I've always felt this. And
Yes.
you and I were talking about it, and like the sense of sometimes it's an amazing tool because like words just seem to come together in sometimes the most poetic, beautiful way.
Yeah, it's like a flow of consciousness, right? Just
Totally.
like,
and so, yeah, absolutely. And it's like sometimes I write it, if I read back, sometimes I can't even read what I've written because it's not meant to be read back. But
right.
sometimes things stand out to me, and it's like, that's definitely my next show. The title that just came out, or those words that were strung together, that's something to explore. So seriously beautiful. And so that's why we're asking you to do this journaling thing.
Really
and
powerful.
so it's so powerful. And by the end of getting to that journaling session and really like going into the feelings of what had hurt me so much about that SMS was just basically thinking, oh my gosh, like even on a passion project that really is fueled by a purpose, and I know it's like a life purpose. This is something that you and I have spoken about, and it's important to us, that someone who meant well could absolutely thwart your productivity completely, you know?
Right.
And this led me to saying, oh my God, yeah, we need to actually create healthy boundaries. And
That's it.
healthy boundaries.
And that so
you know?
ties in with why that ties in with productivity is because that's where it all starts to unravel, right? The minute that we have unhealthy
Yes.
boundaries, which are either too rigid or too porous.
Yes, and you mentioned last week, you said like managing expectations of yourself, but then you mentioned and you used that word stakeholders, and you said like managing expectations of the stakeholders in our lives, and that means everybody who actually weighs in on our life. You like need to set healthy boundaries for that as well.
Yes.
And then also what I remembered, Combs, was us, answering those heart space questions. And the one that came up was, what is your biggest regret? And what I said was, and this came up in my journaling as well, was you actually said, Sam, you said what you would do differently the next time would be to absolutely put your blinkers on and focus on your path, not to be distracted by outside noise and outside opinions, and not to take things personally. And that also just aided, okay, sometimes the hardest boundaries to set in place are those with the people closest to us.
Right. And what is a boundary? Let's break it down.
Yeah.
So what does that even mean?
I know, because when you do go into it, it kind of feels like what you're doing is you're shutting people out. You know what I mean? You're blocking
it
them.
can sound really limited.
Harsh.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And so then I went down the rabbit hole and I found this woman. Her name is Lisa Nichols. Okay. And if anybody wants to go onto her YouTube channel, she's a motivational speaker. In fact, she's incredible. She is the founder of Motivating the Masses and the CEO of Motivating the Teen Spirit. And this is what I took away from listening to her. She said, you teach people how to treat you.
Amen.
She said, if you are a people pleaser, which you and I both have found to be as empaths, setting boundaries can be especially hard. But by saying yes all the time, just to avoid conflict, is actually just a misguided sense of connection.
Yes, and it results in resentment, right? And feeling angry and feeling unhealthy, and that then comes out. So you avoid the conflict in the moment, but later down the line, it results in a lot more pain and chaos, right? In your life, because you either then explode or you ruin a relationship, or right?
Nailed it.
Jessica Driver says, this is so amazing. I absolutely love this. Thank you, Jessica. Thanks, Jess.
Oh, that sweet. That is so stunning. Thank you. Yeah, Combs, you actually said the same thing. It's like misplaced resentment or anger. You kind of lay it at the person's feet, someone else to blame. And so she actually does recommend for you to actually own your shit. That's what she said. She's kind of like soul sister as well, She said,
It does
oh,
take
your shit, girl.
responsibility, right? It takes a bit of responsibility.
It does.
And
So it's like,
how do you, yeah.
how did I get to it? It's like taking
How do you do
accountability
that?
for your stuff. I'm going to go into my side, and then I know that you've done research on this too. So she said basically, if someone crosses that line in the sand, it's because you didn't draw it deeply enough. Okay,
Yes.
so it's not their fault. It's you also need to take accountability for the position you find yourself in. So it's like a relationship is like twofold, right? What you bring and what they bring. And no one can take your power away from you if you give it to them. You know what I mean? Unless you give it to them,
Unless you give it to, right.
Unless you give it to them. And I know like how to do this in certain situations, but and I have no problem with conflict, as you know, because I see it as conflict resolution, right?
You're very open, like you're very to the point about stuff.
Yeah.
You'd be like, I don't like what you just said. But I'd rather have that than someone go, no, everything's fine, and then they like resent you for a year,
But once you go to realize like actually your accountability, then you need to do something about it. So she gives you like positive ways to actually confront it, and that means to go to the person and actually bring it up. But when you're taking accountability for it, that means you really do need to own your stuff. And so when you go and speak to them, there is a sense of you're not going with aggression, and you're not going with a like passive aggressive tone. You're actually going in the spirit of resolving a conflict and taking responsibility for your stuff. So she even gives you like this little way of linking into how you can approach the conversation. And she says, you can say, I owe you an apology because I've made you think that I have no boundaries. I have overused my yes, and you have gotten used to hearing it. I apologize, and I know you love me and I love you, but this isn't working for me anymore. And because I know you care about me, I know you'd want me to be happy. And then take it from there.
And it's such positive language. It's not
really
confrontational. It's not aggressive. It's firm, but it's a loving firmness, right? It's actually loving as well to set boundaries, because it tells everyone where they are with you, where they stand with you.
Yes. So that's it. That's my take on it. You know me, I always go into the feelings of it.
I love that, and I think that it's so good to. What was the writer or the speaker?
Her name is Lisa Nichols. She was actually part of Lisa Nichols, and she was part of The Secret, part of writing that book as well, The Secret. Yeah.
So Janice Honeyman has commented. Janice says, this is great to listen to. Aren't most of us people pleasers? We often cut ourselves to bits trying to make sure everyone's happy.
Yes.
That's so true. And I think especially, I keep saying this, but maybe it's because I'm biased, but especially performers, because we are constantly wanting to please, the director or the audience or the creative. I don't know. I mean, everyone is like this, right? But we all have different areas in our lives where we are either. I think that if I understand it correctly, some of us have boundaries we find easy to set, and other boundaries are hard to set. So I kind of, from my side, I just said, what is protected by healthy boundaries? So why do we set them, right?
Right.
So basically, our time, our energy, our personal values, and our emotions. So that is what we are protecting by setting boundaries. And the boundaries, as I understand it, is actually crucial to self-care. You can't be healthy within yourself if you can't set boundaries. And I
think it creates a lot of honesty, and it actually creates more of an honest relationship with the person that you're actually trying to create a connection with.
Absolutely. And I also kind of thought, how do we know we have to set a boundary? What's the warning line, blah, 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 what's the warning signal? So I've got this little cute little thing that I want to throw up on screen. So how do we know it's time to set a boundary, right?
Yes.
So you feel taken advantage of or untrusting. Your
Yes.
space or privacy is being interrupted. You feel uncomfortable or angry with something someone did or said.
Yes.
You're being blamed for someone or something you're not responsible for doing. You feel others are pushing ideas, actions, or feelings onto you. You feel disrespected, insulted, or hurt. You want to share how you want and do not want to be treated. You feel bullied, abused, or someone is being aggressive, and you see someone is trying to compete with you. Now, that's an interesting one. Compete with you. That's not a healthy competition, right? So we've got to be very careful here. It's an unhealthy competition. So basically, that's how we know we need to set a boundary. And I want to do a little exercise with everybody, and I hope everyone at home has a journal with them right now, or if you don't, grab a pen and paper. We have ours. So
you'll have to write a thing or two.
First of all, when we don't know, if we don't know how we're needing to apply healing or improvement, we don't know what improvement to apply, right?
Exactly.
So let's find out about our boundaries a little bit.
Okay.
Cool. So
in real time, we're going to write these.
In real time, here we go. List 3 people or groups of people with whom you struggle to set healthy boundaries.
Okay.
So leave 3 lines open beneath each one. So that's 3 groups of people or 3 specific people with whom we struggle to put down healthy boundaries. Okay. So we'll give you, and it has to be just be off the top of your head. The key is not to overthink these exercises. Okay.
Okay.
Now, for each of these 3, list which out of the following boundaries, so underneath the name where you left 3 lines open, list which of the following boundaries you feel are being violated. And it can be more than one. So here they are: physical, intellectual, emotional, sexual, material, or time.
Okay.
Physical boundaries, intellectual boundaries, emotional boundaries, sexual boundaries, material boundaries, time boundaries. Which boundaries are being overstepped with these 3 people? Remember, it can be more than one. And we do go quite fast during the show, but if you want to refer back, this is being recorded.
Okay,
and
perfect.
now, next to each, identify whether your boundaries are too porous or too rigid. So for each physical, intellectual, emotional, sexual, material, time, are my boundaries too porous, meaning I have no boundaries, I let everyone walk over me, or are they too rigid, as in, I don't let anyone close to me, and no. So then you're going to, so you've now got 3 people, you've listed which boundaries they're overstepping, you're going to list if you're too porous or too rigid. And then the last step is, in your own time, think about ways in which you can address each of these boundary issues. Each of them, every single one of them. Think about positive, productive ways, and Sammy explained how to touch on that, to address that. And it might take a day or 2. You know, that's a good little exercise to be aware of and to apply. And we will, I've written mine down. Sammy's going to write hers down.
I've just written them already.
And
Should I share?
Do you want to
go ahead and share?
Okay.
So, go ahead, Carm, share.
You go first.
Okay, I wrote our industry, which is what you mentioned. Industry, it's the first one. Secondly, sound like I'm still in some foreign country. Secondly, close friends and maybe loved ones.
Right.
And the third one is social media.
Oh my word, I love that. I also wrote social media.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay. So my take on the industry was that because of our industry, we have to often jump in and show our vulnerability and be open to serve the work and to serve the piece and to enable the director to work with us. And so you're thrown into very intimate spaces with people very quickly. So that's that. And my resolution to that is, because this is my big problem, because you and I have spoken about this, I'm like, and I just think automatically people think like I do. And I trust people way too soon. And so for me, it's like understanding that vulnerability in an open heart space is beautiful, but you don't need to give it all away. And choose the people that you're going to do that with.
Yes. Brilliant.
Okay, your next one.
So mine's social media. Which boundaries do they overlap? It's intellectual, emotional, time, and physical. It feels sometimes like it's such a physical part of my life because I'm sitting consuming this material or either producing this material that's going out there into the world, right? A photo or a pouch or a selfie. Yeah, ask them. I have a love-hate relationship with social media. And how do I overcome that? Once again, say no to people or requests that I don't want to be a part of, whether that's a friend request, whether that's a message request, whether that's an email. Say decline, say no. That for me is the biggest thing. Or say yes, but manage the people's expectations. So set a boundary, but go, I'm happy to do X, Y, and Z, but not ABC. Or
right.
And I think clearly define what you want to put out onto social media and not, and then stick to that. And if someone tries to violate that, you say no. If you try to violate it yourself, just say no.
Well, that's the problem. It's like sometimes you find yourself doing it. And I think like what you mentioned, like, so for me in the industry, that first one, like it is a drain on your energy and your mental space. Because if you're so busy trying to connect with people, you have no time to actually focus on the work. And then you take it home with you and you worry, you start taking people's opinions to heart. And you should just actually like leave that for your friends. So my second, yes. Go ahead.
I think we should probably move to heart space.
Okay.
But do you want it? Should we go through?
No.
We can go through all three.
No, you and I can chat on our own, baby. That's perfect. It's an example. Yeah,
I think we can. If viewers at home, if you want to weigh in, if you want to comment, please do about what we've just done. Because we're going to open heart space, and then maybe people can share their exercises with us in heart space.
Perfect.
Okay, guys.
Oh, this is it. We've got some anonymous questions.
Oh my gosh, do we? Okay, so can I first put this comment up?
Yes.
Janice Honeyman replied again. She said, I suppose it's our job to please, but it overlaps into our personal lives, and that's hard to sort out. We often don't know where our boundaries need to be. That's it, right? Thank you, Janice, because that's why it's so hard, because boundaries can change minute to minute.
Yeah, it's dynamic.
Depending on who you're dealing with, or because some people you might let someone pass a couple of boundaries and you won't mind, and then another person you don't want them to pass.
That's it.
Half the boundary.
That's it. But certainly there's like certainly the closer the person is to you, there feels like there are less boundaries unless you feel something negative or toxic coming out of that space. But generally, oh my gosh.
That's why it's so difficult. I think that's why it requires a check-in every day.
It
right?
really
to
does.
Know what boundaries we're setting and with who. And Sami, you think?
I was thinking, I saw something as well that Matthew McConaughey, lovely Matthew McConaughey, had written, said on YouTube. And now that you're talking about it, I'm like, he said, like, life is hard. It's really difficult sometimes. But maybe if you don't know what it is you want, maybe start by a process of elimination. So write about what it is you don't want. And so that might help you break it down. Do you know what I mean? So that you can create clear, I don't want to feel this way. I don't want, and if that starts to come up, then you know, boundary needs to be set. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to feel disrespected. Why am I feeling resentful? I don't want to have that. So it's almost like how you're feeling in each situation, you know that there is a reason for it. I don't want to have to feel that way. Boundary needs to be set.
Yes,
I don't know.
exactly. I agree with that. It's almost like you have to go through something that makes you feel uncomfortable to know that that's a red signal. Okay, I need to set a boundary. And then once you try and never have to go through that again, you shouldn't have to be stung twice.
Got you. Yeah.
Am I understanding you correctly? Because it's,
totally.
These concepts are so nebulous. That's why we try and like discuss them and break them down and like have concrete exercises. So, okay. So we have.
So yes. So the one comment, the lack of boundaries invites lack of respect. Yeah. I totally agree with that. That's exactly what we're saying. Yes. Thank you for that.
I agree. I agree
Next
with
one.
that. Then, Okumis. So
whatever you are willing, can't you see it?
Yes, whatever you are willing to put up with is exactly what you will have.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you, I thought that
whatever you allow.
whatever you allow, yes, exactly. You teach people how to treat you.
Exactly.
Right?
Carmen, you learn from Lisa Nichols.
I did.
I get this one.
Yes, this is a good
one. As a motivational, is it that one? As a motivational coach myself, I think boundaries can also be this systemic of limiting beliefs and behavior. We need to step outside of our comfort zones to move forward. Please address this. Yeah, no, look, I do understand that, and that is something to think about. But for me, it's like you learn something about yourself when the time is right. And it doesn't matter if someone comes and says, you need to hear this now, you need to hear this now. If you're not ready to face it yet, that boundary needs to stay in place. And generally, it'll be caused by a feeling of, if you're uncomfortable. But sometimes getting out of your comfort zone is as a result of trying something new or scared to try something new. So it sort of feels like it's slightly different. Do you know what I mean?
It's not harming you.
It's not harming you. It's just.
It can feel scary, or new.
It can feel scary because it's new. Yes, and to maybe think of a different way and just try it, because maybe your worst thoughts won't come true. So it's definitely, I think it's a different situation completely there. But I mean, that is something to take note of, yeah, for sure.
And I think that it's very, sometimes that line is very blurry. So then take the time, journal to see what you think, what is actually going on inside. Which Jessica Driver has weighed in on Heart Space. Thanks, Jess. Thank you, my darling Jess. She says, Shami, you'd be able to answer this one really well. What advice can you give on starting a journal? I would love to start doing it, especially in this time of uncertainty, but not too sure how to start or what to write.
Beautiful. So I would say find a beautiful journal, something that resonates with you when you go shopping, because that's, for me, it's always the thing. It's like something beautiful. It feels like a sacred thing. And then
and colors, if you like colors, pens, and interesting things that you like to play with.
Yes, that makes me think of you, Carms, and your notes and your script as well. Like a note, like beautiful.
Well. She would like colors.
So basically, say that again.
Whatever makes you feel good, right?
Yes, it's a positive experience. You don't want to feel like this is work. You want to feel like it's just a positive exploration. There's no right and wrong way to do it. It is just generally writing whatever's on the top of your head as soon as you wake up. Just write, a free flow of thought. Just write 3 pages.
We get to another section, like in a couple of minutes, where we'll explain also the power of morning pages, which is a section we want to leave with everybody after every week.
Yes,
and that might be a really good way to start, like Sam says, every morning.
Before you get out of bed,
it's called Morning Pages, but we have a little section to address what that is coming up. So thank you for everyone who weighed in on Heart Space. Sami,
brilliant.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, not at all. I think that's amazing. I think, I mean, it's exactly what Janice was saying as well. It's so difficult to know where the lines are. And I mean, as that coach said as well, you know.
And you have to just, it takes practice and it takes follow through. You have to parent yourself. You have to set it, set the boundary, follow through, and do it every time. And then it becomes second nature to you. The first time you might be like, oh, I don't know how to say no to this person. And then you're like, oh, so sorry. I said, no, I'm sorry. And that's what I do is I backtrack.
Yes, stick with it, baby. Stick with it. Okay, so the next section is
quote of the day.
Woo!
Quote of the day today is really simply links back to boundaries, and it's quite straightforward. Compassionate people ask for what they need. They say no when they
Cool. And Brene Brown.
Yes. So compassionate people ask for what they need. They say no when they need to. And when they say yes, they mean it. They're compassionate because their boundaries keep them out of resentment. Which links back to what you said, right?
Yeah, it's a positive way of looking at it so that you don't like beat yourself up about it.
Yeah. So guys, quote of the day, refer back to it. You can rewind. It's really important. Put it up on a mirror.
Beautiful. Okay, so we're going to move on now to the moment of mindfulness, because this is where we're going to show you some other applications. And for Jess as well, this is how you can possibly start getting centered so that you can enter into the space of journaling.
Beautiful.
Here we go. So basically what I wanted to do was just go a little bit deeply into a mindful breathing exercise. We spoke about it last week, and we're actually going to do it now. And it's a technique to calm down and to relieve stress instantly. So we're just going to do it. It's just going to be a couple of minutes of just like engaging in this practice. So start by settling into a comfortable position. And that's either lying down or in a seated position, and invite your eyes to close. You can begin by taking several long, slow, deep breaths, breathing in fully and exhaling fully. And it's best to breathe in through your nose and then out through your mouth. Allow the breath to find its own natural rhythm. And you bring your full attention to noticing each in-breath as it enters your nostrils and travels down to your lungs and causes your belly to expand. And just notice each out-breath as your belly contracts and the air moves up through the lungs, back up through the nostrils or mouth, and what it feels like, obviously, when you're breathing in. It's a very different sensation. Notice how the inhale, as I said, is different. It may experience the sense of air as being cool as it enters your nose and warm as you exhale. And as you turn more deeply inward, begin to let go of noises around you. And if you are distracted by sounds, which is often happening, simply notice them and then bring your attention back to your breath. You simply breathe. You're not striving to change anything about your breath. You don't need to try and control your breath in any way. You just observe and accept your experience in this moment without any judgment. You're just paying attention to each inhalation and each exhalation. And if your mind wanders to thoughts, plans, or problems, simply just notice your mind wandering. just keep bringing your attention back to your breath. Your breath is the anchor that you can return to again and again, especially when you become distracted by thoughts. So just take a moment now just to practice this on your own. Just practice coming home to the breath with your full attention. You can acknowledge whatever comes up, but just notice it without judging it. Don't push it away or cling to it. You're trying to be mindfully present in each moment with your breath. Now, as this practice comes to an end, slowly allow your attention to expand and just notice your entire body, and then beyond your body to the room you're in. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Come back to being fully alert and awake. This breath is always with you as a refocusing tool to bring you back to the present moment. It can really be done anytime during the day. Just don't do it while you're driving or operating heavy machinery. And I hope that gave you a sense of what it feels like just to focus on the breath. Beautiful. Thank you. Thanks for joining. Let's move on.
Beautiful. So with that, we're going to link into our last section, our takeaway section. This is for you to take home, to apply until the next time we see you. So what I want to leave you with is the affirmation that Sammy and I chose for today. And I do want to read it out, but I suppose I'm just going to click it on through. First, here goes. So I know we've run out of time, but Sami, will you just quickly keep us then for Jess?
Totally. And Jess, possibly the first thing you can think about before you actually get into the free flow of writing is something that the 12-step program does. And that is you wake up in the morning and you simply write 5 things that you're grateful for. Because what that does is it immediately kind of just puts you into that attitude of gratitude, which increases this contentment and sense of life satisfaction. And it also just alters your mood so that you're looking at things with a more positive slant. So that sort of also just helps you say, well, I'm not seeking anything further. I'm actually okay with everything that I have in this present moment, and be grateful for it, truly grateful. And then obviously go into the journaling. But the other thing that I wanted to maybe bring up is what you can do at the end of each day is also just list 5 things that went really well during the day. 5 things that you might have improved on, that you might have had an intention for, and that you found yourself absolutely being able to achieve. It might have been having a sort of like a difficult conversation. So you can pat yourself on the back, like I managed to resolve that conflict and I never let myself down and it never got out of hand. So that kind of thing is like really celebrating what it is that you actually have done in the day. So it's just building up your positivity, and that's it.
And you start every day like that and end every day like that, right?
Every day. Yeah, so if you can do this going into Friday, obviously, and we'll check back with you. That'll be great.
Check back on Friday, our next episode, right here, same time. Thanks for being with us. Safe travel.
We appreciate it.
Navigators.
Yes.
You cut me loose and set me free. You cut me loose.